Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Green Dragon Podcast. I'm your host, Aiden,
And your fellow host, Tom.
and tonight it's going to be like a fireside chat with Tom and Aiden because we just thought it was time to talk, and it was important for us to talk, and also because we did have a topic that we came up with. Tonight's
Yeah.
going to be like like a fireside chat, and we're also going to be remembering the if you're listening to this, it's probably released 2 weeks later, but as of today, April 25th, Tucker Carlson has left Fox News, so this is going to be like a tribute podcast to Tucker. I think we'll talk about Tucker a little bit, and yeah, yeah. Um, in honor of the great Fox News anchor. He's not dead. Don't worry. If you don't know what's going on, Tucker's not dead. He just left Fox News.
But it feels like he died.
Yeah, it does feel like he died. I mean, it feels like Fox News is probably dead now.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. He's probably doing great, and Fox is like, oh,
Tucker's just chilling at his cabin up in Maine, probably fly fishing. Meanwhile,
yeah.
Fox News is scrambling to find their new star anchor.
I know.
uh,
I actually heard their stock dropped $1 billion after he
it
left.
did. It was not good. You know what was crazy? Is yesterday you heard that Dom Lemon, as I call him, he got booted from CNN, and no surprise there. The writing was on the wall for him, but it was hilarious because Tucker left, Fox News stock dropped, Don left. Don got fired, and CNN stock went up. It was the best thing CNN's done in the last like 5 years. Just fired Don Lemon. so
That's funny.
yeah, pretty funny stuff. It's kind of interesting to see. I don't even know like fully. I've heard some things about it, but like I don't even know fully why he's mutually decided to leave. I heard it was something to do with a lawsuit, possibly, but I don't know if that's true. And
Um, well, I listened to JP Sears' take on it today.
okay.
What he was talking about, there's a lot of connections into Fox that aren't so good.
Well,
And he
it's
said that,
legacy media. There's
uh
always the room for it to be corrupt. I kind of figured.
yeah, so they essentially didn't like what Tucker was doing, bringing Musk, Trump, and Robert Kennedy on.
Hmm.
And he likes to stand his ground. And he said before that they don't like how transparent he is with what he thinks.
Yeah.
And so he was fired, is what
Mm.
I think the official story is because um, I think if the JP was saying if he was left, they probably would have made um like a farewell show for him. Like
Yeah.
last day Tucker
Hmm.
was on. So JP had some pretty interesting things to say about it. If the audience would like to go check it out, I think it's on Rumble and YouTube. It's on the JP Reacts channel.
Oh, okay.
But he explains pretty much where the connections were, what was happening, why Tucker was a problem, and probably why he was fired. So
Got it. Got it. Okay.
yeah,
Makes sense. I think Patrick Bet David also did a like emergency podcast for him too, and kind of explained some of it. I listened to part of that, so that was
yeah,
also interesting too. They talked about both him and Don, so and kind of the difference between the two. Um, with Don, it seemed like the writing was kind of on the wall for him, but it seemed very sudden and weird that Tucker just ended up. I think what he was on Friday, and then Monday it was just kind of happened. It's kind of wild.
yeah. No, it is wild, and I don't know if you also know the anchor Don Bongino from Fox. He also left Fox, I think today.
Really
So
interesting.
that's two double whammies on Fox, and uh, a lot of people watch Fox just for Tucker. So it's expected that Fox might not do so well in the future. So
Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said I think Fox News might be going down. It might be the death of Fox News because, yeah, like you said, I think a lot of people just listen for Tucker, and he was kind of the. I don't know. Some people some people listen to Hannity and all that, but like, I would say it's. I would say probably the majority listen for Tucker.
yeah, well, yeah, and I think the reason is because Tucker genuinely cares, and when you have someone that big that genuinely cares, a lot of people, they, the good people want to watch, but he does get painted as a target and a problem by who, and so I heard that the leader of the CEO of Fox didn't want to promote Trump at all, and when Tucker brought Trump on for a full interview, I think that also caused some problems. And that was a great interview. I
It
listened
was a
to
fun
part,
interview. Yeah, it was a good
like,
interview.
um, he really let Trump just take the microphone, which is
Mm-hmm.
great because just let Trump speak. And yeah, and then Elon Musk was really neat because Tucker was just talking about stuff about that. And Elon had some really interesting things to say, um, especially about him wanting to make sure that the First Amendment is upheld and used properly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was saying that ChatGPT is a big threat to the First Amendment, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the way it's being weaponized in many cases, I think.
yeah. Well, and like, I don't know if you use it much, but I'm not that impressed by it, honestly. Like,
Yeah,
people
I
say,
don't.
like,
I've heard four is better. Like, I mean, three is interesting, right? Because like three, you can
yeah,
ChatGPT three. At least, like, if you want to come up with like, if you're just really blanking on things, it can give you some like decent ideas. Um, but like, yeah, it's not that impressive. But I heard four is like wild. Like, from what I've heard, four is like gonna be like three. It was programmed, and then it doesn't like the way I understood it is it doesn't like it's programmed off certain things, and it doesn't grow in its knowledge really. It just kind of it was waiting for the next update. But now with ChatGPT 4, it will constantly update itself and its knowledge. So it will become smarter as it gains more information.
mm,
So it's like true AI. Whereas this was kind of like it was AI, but it was AI that was based 100% off what it was programmed to do. Whereas the new one will program itself as it runs, which is kind of wild.
that's all freaky.
A little freaky, yeah. Yeah, because it still is going to run off. Like, I mean, it's still going to be a programmed, like, it's going to have a starting point, right? So, like, there's going to be a starting point to the programming and what it's programmed to do or to say, and then it's only going to learn within those parameters. I think. I don't think it will be able to learn outside of the parameters set for it. So it still will be limited in that sense, I think, of what it like the scope of what it can do, but it is self-learning.
Mm, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
fascinating. We'll have to get Peter on to talk about it. I talked to him the other day, and we had him on to actually talk about GPT-3 a while back on the show, and that was an interesting conversation because I didn't really understand anything. Um, so that was good. So maybe we'll have to once GPT-4 is out and he's kind of taking a look at it. He might be a good person. I also got another buddy that's into like the AI type programming stuff, so he might have some insights on it too that we could get him on and talk about it because I limited knowledge on this type of stuff. It's like way above my pay grade.
Yeah. I've used it a few times, like GPT-3, and I like say I'd like you to do this, and then it's like I can't do it, or it's like I can do it, and only does like a third of it. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with GPT-3, and I think this is like one of the problems with it, is like because it's so intelligent with how it collects the data. Like I think a lot of people use it, and I kind of fell into this too. Is I treated it like a Google search engine when it should be treated as like a whole nother thing. You know,
yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense, but like the way you search things, like you're almost reprogramming how you search things with it because it solves a lot of the questions that you would ask normally through Google, like a Google search. So you don't have to type those things in, and it does a lot of that like work for you. So you have to ask it like a different type of question, I feel like.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was using it as like a generator for like for the Liberty Bell, since we have the word of the day with that. I
Yeah.
asked it to like generate me a list of words,
Mm-hmm.
and every time I asked for it, it would only do part of the what I asked it to do. So
Yeah.
it was interesting. Maybe it's just a limit, but yeah. So, but I guess we could go back to Tucker. Like, it's gonna be interesting to see what unfolds from this because I think him being gone or being taken out of the big public eye might be an eye opener to a lot of people. They're like gonna start questioning why it was so sudden and why he got dropped. And I think it might actually help boost promotion for more citizen journalists. Um, JP Sears was actually thinking he might start his own podcast and be his own citizen journalist. Should be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. What's the one that Rogan talks about all the time? That's like an independent, and you can like an independent sourced platform for journalists where you can go on and you can pay. I forget the name of it. Is it like
Substack?
Substack? Yeah,
Yeah.
Substack. Yeah, that's a good. I feel like that's how journalism should be. Like it shouldn't be about
Yeah.
the network or the publisher. It should be about the actual journalists themselves or the reporter themselves. Like they should be the ones. I think it's kind of been a broken system for a while. It's like all about like okay, like you know, as a journalist or as a reporter, how are you going to bring in clicks to the company? But it really should be about the content and like giving the journalist or the reporter the autonomy to go out and look into something they're actually passionate about or actually interested in because that's how you get better content is when you give the reporter the journalist the autonomy to go research something that they're actually interested in.
Yeah, and they're finding what they think is the most interesting stories, getting their take on it, and you hear their take, rather than a big media group saying, hey, go check this out, do this, do that. So it's much more like a person on top thinking what's best to cover, rather than anybody finding out something and trying to share the truth on it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's good because like then rewards good journalism. Like the good
Yeah,
journalists will have more followers, have more clicks because people trust them and trust their skills as a journalist rather than just clicking on it because it's a clickbait title that was created so the big corporations could reel in the clicks and the money on ads.
yeah. And a good example of someone like that is, well, there's a few of them, but they usually work for Turning Point USA. One of my favorites is Savannah Hernandez. She does a lot of like walk arounds and asking people's opinions, and then um, There's another person on Truth Social who's really prevalent on Instagram. Her name's called Toria Brooke. She has a lot of good stuff.
Yep.
And then I don't know if you'll call them journalists, but other people that are kind of using their own platform and their own thoughts to bring into the political space are like Isabel Brown. There's a guy on PragerU. He's a young guy that does all the interviews. His name's Matt, I think.
I think I've seen him before. Yeah.
He's like, he always walks up and asks people things. And Charlie Kirk is like the guy, like one of the main guys. Like,
Yeah. Charlie's like the OG.
yeah, he's the OG.
Yeah.
So, but it's fun because then you kind of form a relationship with those people, which is kind of neat because then you get to see like firsthand what they're thinking, what they're saying, and then, yeah, from there you can base better judgments rather than just sitting on a news channel where it's people just in an office reporting on reporters. It's kind of like playing telephone. You get the news so many times, and then the final person says what happened, rather than like you just being there with a camera on you and just talking to people or being at an event or something. So it's much more up close and raw, I guess.
Exactly. It's more real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time. I think it's a interesting time for how information's spread, and it's a cool point in history because we've had, for the last like 50 years, this very uniform way about how information is spread, and I think it's kind of at a turning point, and it's really, there's a lot of opportunity for independence now, and that's a good thing. And I think things like this whole Tucker thing will continue to push the opportunities for independent voices to have a platform to speak. I think that's what's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Joe Rogan is like one of the prime examples of somebody who just owns a microphone and just talks to people, and he does such a good job of talking to people that millions of people want to just listen in.
Exactly. Yeah, he's I think he was the catalyst in many ways for the um the point in time we're at right now. Because I think a lot of people like that genuine conversation, and podcast is a great way to do that because it offers anybody the ability to have an audience and not necessarily be tied up in what can and can't be said because of the agency or a producer or a network and all these things that have that are tied up in trying to maximize their ad revenues and their deals with pharmaceutical companies or what have you, right? Other agendas. So it creates a true independent experience. So I think, yeah, I think you're totally right. I think I think he's definitely he was probably one of the first examples of an independent source of information that was hyper successful.
Yeah. And the neat thing is, Jordan Peterson was talking about this actually in a Joe Rogan podcast about if you listen to conversations, there's natural narrative arcs. So, and there's like macro and there's mini. So when you listen to the whole podcast, you get the whole theme and a whole bunch of little things. But that's why you can like take shorts out of a podcast, and it's a small narrative arc. So it has elements of ideas that work in that concise segment, but then they also fit into the broader picture and the broader schema of what's going on. And what's really neat about long conversations is you essentially get in a lot deeper and a lot more of those general themes and smaller themes. So you definitely get a deeper level of knowledge. and it helps you with your brain because now you're thinking in long-term and short-term perspectives rather than just sound bites, which are usually short-term. They don't give you enough information to make like a decision that would be good for a long-term future. Like it's kind of like if you were trying to make a meal and if you only had 10 seconds to say what you're eating rather than 10 minutes to explain how to make a meal, then you would have two drastically different outcomes. So I think that might be one of the reasons why people are so interested in long form content now, because they want to see what is the truth and then how does it play out and how do you work with it. Because if you only work in sound bites, then eventually maybe you'll just be making too many short decisions that are detriment to your long-term plan.
Yeah, I think there's two different types of people right now. So it is interesting to see like the polar opposites of that, because there are the people that are interested in the long form content, and then there I think are also, and I think those people are genuine critical thinkers. They like to think through things. They like to solve problems. But then you have the other end of the spectrum that's consumes like TikTok and shorts and all this stuff, and that's like a very limited attention span. They just want to be spoon fed entertainment and ideas in a very concise manner. And those people typically don't like to think through things very much. So it is interesting because I think right now there's two very distinct types of people. So it's interesting to see because I think for a while there was no real place for the thinkers, the critical thinkers to be. And or there was no space for the critical thinkers to engage in meaningful content or consume meaningful content. So it is interesting, and we have talked about that a little bit in previous. I really went on a rant. I think in a video that we posted a few weeks ago about how you shouldn't take our shorts and take them to be. You can't fit everything in a 20-second clip that you would talk about in 2 hours, right? So like I think it is important if you find a 20-second clip and you're interested in it to then do your due diligence and look into something further. But there are the people that don't want to do, go through the due diligence to read the whole thing or listen to the whole thing, and they just want to take what's kind of been placed in front of them as truth and as and they just kind of twist. I think then it's easy to twist the truth a little bit. So it's the clickbait culture, I think.
Yeah, I think it's slowly going away. Honestly, like
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
I've seen so many like clickbaits now that you almost understand and know that they're clickbait because of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Like you almost have like a filter now. It's like, oh, that's not true, or that's not real, and then you want to focus more on learning something rather than just seeing something crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so many crazy things now. I think people like to find something more stable. They're like, well, pretty much everything crazy that I could think of has happened. Weirder stuff that I thought could happen have happened. So maybe we'll just find stuff that's easier on the soul.
Exactly.
A little less troubling.
There's definitely more demand for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we got in the podcast, Aiden and I were talking about nicotine actually and how it can help with mental focus.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, Patrick Bet David actually, so he has this house tour on YouTube, and he has this sweet backyard, and he loves to entertain.
Yeah.
But he loves to entertain in a way that all of his family is interacting with all of his guests. So he has multiple places for people to go. So he has like his bar, he has a TV room, he has fire pits, he has pool, he has his dock, and then he has this space in the back, which is really cool. He calls it like his outdoor bar and a smoking spot, or his
Mm-hmm.
cigar area.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this three-sided enclosed place with like couches and a fireplace in the middle. And he said, "This is where I have like some of the deepest conversations in my life." He's like, "We got the cigars, and we're just sitting around this fire, and we're just talking about stuff that interests us." And so you're saying like fireside chat. I'm like, I need to get myself a cigar pack and just have it ready.
Yeah. No,
Like,
I think you're onto something there. I think it's good. I think it's good. Tucker really likes his Zin pouches. He's big Zin guy. Tucker loved his Zin pouches. He still does. But yeah, I think you're right. I think like there's something about like that experience that elevates conversation. Whether it's nicotine or even I would say even if you listen to some of the guys that like do a podcast and like are responsible with their drinking and like have a drink while they're on the podcast, it like starts to like open up I don't want to say a different type of conversation, but it opens up the conversational flow a little bit differently than if you were going into it completely sober. And it is interesting to see. One thing that's I think interesting, like especially with alcohol, is like the like idea, like the word spirit. Like if you look at spirits, like that's like a broad term used to like classify like harder alcohol, right? Like spirits are something that's a little bit harder or higher in alcohol content. But like the reason we call it spirit is because it like unleashes, like unlocks something within us that's like spiritual. It like releases that spirit within us. So I think like you're onto something there. I think there's like certain conversations that happen under the influence. Um, and so I think that's pretty cool. I think yeah, like that fireside chat idea. I think in general, I think what it does in many cases is it breaks down like the barriers
mhm,
that are in place a lot of times when it comes to conversation.
mhm,
Um, and those barriers could be anything from like just a difference of opinion to maybe a little bit of anxiety going into a conversation where you're not like completely enveloped in the conversation of the ideas being shared, and it unlocks something that is like deeper, almost spiritual in a sense, where it elevate it takes that conversation to a different level. I don't know if you like agree with that completely, but I kind of think of it in that way. I think it like unlocks a different level of conversation. And like if you look at like history too, like a lot of the spaces that people had deep conversations in were like bars and like taverns. Like that's why the name of this podcast is the Green Dragon Tavern. That's the Green Dragon Tavern was a place where the Sons of Liberty, the founding fathers, met to discuss like the ideas that created this country. So I think it's interesting to see that like as a part of history. Um,
yeah,
it's kind of
no,
fascinating. Yeah.
it really is fascinating because I think, especially for guys, there's something about us when we're not doing something, we feel anxious.
Yeah. No,
And
no,
so,
no. Yeah. Yeah.
like we always, like guys always fidgeting with their hands, they're slapping themselves or doing something, it's like trying to keep themselves awake or interested or focused or like it's really hard for guys to just have their hands by their sides. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you notice that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
most guys would want to cross their arms or put their hands in their pockets.
Mm-hmm. The
It's like
fidgeting. Yeah, the fidgeting is definitely a big thing.
so when you have like something in your hand, like a cigar or um, a drink or something, it takes out that need to be constantly moving.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just take that part of your mind off and then you can just truly focus in on something.
Yeah.
And then whatever is in there is definitely helping you like relax in some points.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to a degree. Yeah, but kind of lost my thought there. Must be something.
No, I think no. I think you're right. I think it like, um, I think it gives you something to do while you're conversing, so that you can focus your mind on the conversation at hand rather than the awkwardness of just sitting there or standing. And I think yeah, I think it focuses you more for many people. I think some people it doesn't. I think it depends maybe too on your personality. Um, but like with nicotine, especially, it's it's a neurostimulant. So like it in the right dosages. We talked about this a little bit before the podcast too. Like Andrew Huberman talks about it. Like nicotine helps you focus on something because it helps fire your neurons in a different way. Um, which is why it's such a good, like, in the right dosages, such a good mental aid, because it like directs it keeps your mind sharp. Where and alcohol relaxes too. So like both of those things, one helps you focus through the firing of neurons, and the other one relaxes you in a sense so that you can kind of focus on just having a conversation.
Yeah, I want to study it more, but I'm actually thinking now. It's like, how could we both like set up a fireside area? You
Fireside
and I,
chats.
and
Yeah,
yeah, that
it'd
way
be
you could
it'd be cool.
we could do our have our guests out like side by a fire. That'd be cool. Having a fire crackle inside of the podcast.
Yeah, some ASMR.
Yeah.
We could start. We've got the green screens now. We could start bringing in, like, I don't know if we could like put like a video of like a fire like crackling behind us.
There we go.
It does. Tom's got the green screen this week, and you might have noticed in previous videos my video quality has gone up a notch. It's because I've got a green screen here, so now I can wave my arms around and like dance in front of this screen. Um, it's pretty cool, actually. I'm not gonna lie. I don't mind the green screen. It really does. It's a pretty neat like feature, uh, or just an added, you know, an added little tool to help accentuate the quality of a video when you're watching. There's less like, I don't know. It it just improves the quality of the video a little bit. It looks good, Tom. Your
You
green
think
screen,
so?
yeah, the green screen
Okay,
works
cool.
well. Yeah.
I know this part of my head is a little fady, but it might be the
It
lighting
could
too.
just be the yeah, it could just be the adapting. It could be the camera too. Sometimes the camera, if it's not built to pick up the screen as well. Like I have the extra camera, so that might be the difference. Um, but it's a neat way to like, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah, we're trying to come up with ways that we can improve this the video quality. So if you're watching this, then you get like a it's just added quality for you, the listener, and the viewer. So
Yeah.
pretty neat. But no, there's something interesting about like when your mind is and I was thinking about this today, like when your mind is working well, like I can always tell when I'm having a good day, when I've gotten enough sleep, my mind's a lot sharper. Or like when I exercise or do something like that, like my mind's definitely sharper. Like we talked a little bit before the podcast, like saunas, ice baths, all that stuff. Like it helps I think it just helps you. I don't know what exactly it does, but because I have no clue about the science behind all of it, but like there's definitely something there. And I can always tell a difference between like a day that I don't get very good sleep, or if I don't go to the gym, then my mind's just not like quite as sharp. It's still there, but like you can tell it's a little sluggish, a little slow, not everything's firing right. Just
Mhm.
something a little bit different.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like, um, so I had some health struggles after graduation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was because not good food,
Mm.
not a good healthy environment.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I found out in this January that the water I was drinking was unfiltered.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really bad because it's a cistern system. And so I looked into those tanks because I was trying to fix the pump. And
Yeah.
whew, after watching that, I was like, I'm good. I need to get a
Yeah.
filter. So I went
Yeah.
and got a Berkey water filter, and it's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. Um, and I did that, taking liver and animal organs every day,
Mm-hmm.
drinking kefir,
Mm-hmm.
training, and then being on some supplements for methylation deficiencies, which is where
Yeah.
your body can't take food and turn it into raw elements it needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Got that from 10x Health.
Yeah.
Um, so some shout outs to people. Thank you very much. But since then, I feel like a new person. Like,
Yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know, I was telling some family members that you honestly will only do as much as how good you feel. So like if you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel
Mm-hmm.
good, you're not going to do much. But if you feel amazing, you want to do so much. Like you won't want to stop and sit down. And so I really think the cure to like this is kind of a tangent, but going from what you're saying, like having a good mind is like it enables you and makes you want to be your best and do your best for others. And so if you can optimize your health in all areas, especially your mind, you can go so many places because like I've been thinking about this a lot lately because we have the Liberty Bell and one of the main focuses on that is how to like command your mind to have full ownership so you can articulate and structure thoughts based on what you understand and how you can understand more about reality and therefore share it with others. So, our language is essentially our communication device for reality. So, if we have our mind where we want it to be, that's where life comes from in a way. Because, and Jordan Peterson talks about this in St. John's Gospel when Christ was, it says that Christ is the Logos, and through him all order was created through the void. So when we're made in the image and likeness of God, we're essentially being told that we're using our minds to see a void of problems or a void of chaos and to make order. Now, the way we make order was we start from simple blocks of building structure. Like we use simple blocks to build our structure. So we have letters that make words, that make sentences, that make paragraphs, that make chapters, that make books, that make volumes, that make history. And all of those building blocks we can use and articulate something about reality that we've experienced and therefore share it with others. And people who are really good at this are comedians because they're able to see something and pose it in a way you wouldn't think of right away or may not think of at all, and then position it in a way that you will see the incongruency in something that will make you laugh. And that's like the definition of laughter is you're seeing an incongruency. But since you see the completion of it, then you laugh because you're able to see the outcome. Really interesting, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is really interesting. I think. Yeah, I think there's so much that like you can do. Like you said, even just changing your water top, like it made a huge difference. Or just optimizing your nutrient intake and all these different things. Like I think you're on to something. I think like you're only as I think you're only as really strong or you're smart as you are healthy. Like your health dictates so much of that. And so if you're not, yeah, if you're not like physically strong or you're not physically healthy, it's going to be like really hard to have like the desire, the dedication to put into your job, um, the motivation to do new things, the motivation to level yourself up. So like that's why it's such an important base in everything you do. Like taking care of your body makes a huge difference. And it's not even like, I mean, that hard. I think most people like overcomplicate things when it comes to like improving their health. Like I think most people are at such a low point or such an unoptimized level in their health that like it doesn't take much to feel like good, like to feel that improvement. Um like for instance, like if people were just to remove processed food from their diet and replace it with whole foods, whole fruits, vegetables, and meats, you're probably going to notice a huge difference not only in your like physical state, but also like your mental sharpness, mental acuity. Probably gonna have more energy, or like even just like improving sleep, making sure you're going to bed at a regular time, good sleep habits, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water to make sure you're getting enough electrolytes. There's just so many little things like that that you can like add that like make a massive difference. Like I can tell the difference. Like, um, I know last time we talked to Tommy Centula and had him on the podcast, I was like a couple months into like really getting back into fitness, and like I had a vacation, so I took a little bit of time off. I got down to a good body weight. I was like, I like this. Got down to like 190. I felt really good. I felt the best I ever felt at 190, and I looked the best I ever looked at 190, which was only a 15-pound difference from where I was at like a couple months before. And I thought I was gonna have to cut down all the way to like 170. But the amount of muscle that I maintained and all that at 190, I was like, let's just I kind of decided like let's ride it out here and see how much I can milk out of the 190 weight class, so to speak, or just let's see how like I felt great. So I was like, why keep trying to push myself lower if I feel good at this? And then I had a vacation and things kind of fell off a little bit. But I'm getting back into it now. Like I gained a few pounds over vacation, but a lot of that's just like water weight from like eating more sugars and processed foods. But like I feel so much better than I did. Or even like just like I wasn't drinking a lot, but I kind of over Lent I took a step back from drinking. And I removed any hard alcohol from my diet, and I felt great. Like I felt really good. So I was only really drinking wine, um, maybe having a glass like a couple nights a week. um, Made a huge difference. Like I just felt more rested when I woke up in the mornings and felt like hydrated better. So made a huge difference. So like now even like, you know, had some visitors in town. Jake came and visited. We went out, had some drinks, had fun. It's good to do that. Good to have that break. But like I could even like tell the difference. Like okay, like went out and had like a couple drinks at a local craft distillery. Next day I was like I definitely can feel that I'm a little bit more dehydrated and like I'm just not as sharp. So like you can just like tell those little once you feel healthy, it kind of becomes like this addictive thing, like you're like, oh, like I don't want to go back to not feeling healthy. And you find them like I think it's once you've gotten yourself into a rhythm, you can kind of find that balance of like maintaining a good healthy equilibrium, um where like you're still just I think you're functioning at a good high level, but not pushing yourself to the point where like because you could definitely push yourself, especially like through physical exertion too, through your exercise. I think you can push yourself too and overwork yourself, and then you kind of fall into the same trap as if you were underworking yourself. So it's like all about finding that balance.
Yeah, it's essentially just keeping the machine running
Yeah,
because
make sure there's oil in the car, make sure there's gasoline in the car, make sure everything's
yeah,
lubed up, and you're good to go.
hmm yeah, like for all those people that know the sound of a perfect running motor, it's pretty awesome. It's just like hurrying along.
Yeah.
And then based on the demand, you can kick it into gear and you
Mm-hmm.
can really go places, you know?
Yeah.
But if it wasn't running smoothly at the start, then you wouldn't really make it very far. So I think this is actually something really interesting I learned from Grant Cardone. I'm listening to this book called Be Obsessed or Be Average. He's a 10x guy.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he believes that the addictive personality is actually the personality of greatness, and that we've been sold so many lies of being contained and don't look for big things, don't be ambitious, don't shoot for the stars, you're crazy, you're unreasonable, things don't work like that. That they have to capture all this energy and put it into something that will try to like give them satisfaction.
Yeah.
But the only thing that really can do that is like high thrills or like high dopamine hits. So that's why he thinks like especially young men fall into drugs, alcohol, and porn. It's three things that stimulate you. So he said that he used to go to like those conferences where you're trying to like figure out your life's problems, like what did your parents do wrong, what did you do wrong, what's your inner psychological problems, how are you so angsty, where did you get this angst, why are you sharing this angst, you know? There's so much angst. And so he was saying that he got himself out of those things because he realized that he had stopped going for what he was hoping for. He stopped dreaming and going for it. And he said that he believes that if you just unlocked the door for those people, he thinks especially men, that you would have all of these problems just kind of fade and dissipate. Because if these kids feel great and they're excited, they know there's a possible future if they apply themselves, and it's a lot of fun to apply yourself.
Oh yeah.
Then there's so much hope for them, and that kind of just alleviates all of these problems in the back. And so you're not going to turn to like forms of relief because your relief is working. So when you work, you make a product, you do something good, and you're like, oh yeah, like let's go.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, that felt good. And now you feel happy. And that's much more restful than saying, I guess I can get through the work today and I'll go home and turn the TV on, see what's on there, you know. None of that stuff sounds very interesting when you think about it. You're like, I'm gonna go watch somebody else do something because I don't think I can do anything.
Yeah.
And it's just so debilitating. It's like if you go to watch. Here's my little philosophy, actually, if you don't mind hearing. But on movie watching, because I've been trying to figure this out for a bit. I think if you go to watch a movie because you want to understand life better, that makes movies really interesting.
Yeah.
Especially well-made movies. If you go to watch a movie to escape your reality, then you feel miserable. Like you kind of feel like a wuss because you're like, well, my life is so bad that I'm just going to enter a fantasy land just to escape, rather than entering a fantasy land to understand better your own reality. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have an escape. I think it is good to have forms of relief for sure. But I think that's what the end game is about. Like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the important thing to take away from that is like if more people channeled, let's say 90% of the energy that they have into trying to achieve or better themselves, it's much more productive than channeling that energy into other things like drugs, alcohol, porn, whatever. And so I think like when you start channeling that energy into something productive, it becomes like an addiction. You don't want to stop doing it, and you're less likely to turn to those other things to fulfill that like satisfaction, that need, that drive, because you're gaining satisfaction through what you're doing. because you're gaining success. I mean, like, it's still okay just like to turn to something for entertainment, but like the people that do that, that turn to something for entertainment that are successful, they've already like achieved that success for the day. They've already won the day. So it doesn't matter, if they turn to watch something for enjoyment for 30 minutes with their family or something like that at the end of the day, it's not like the person that's coming home, cracking a beer and putting themselves in front of the TV to escape. Like, those are two totally different people. Like, one person is doing it because they enjoy doing it. They've had success and they're almost celebrating in a sense, and the other person's doing it because they had such a shitty day that that's the only thing they have to look forward to. Like, one person's already felt all that accomplishment and the other person hasn't felt any accomplishment, so then they're just going to try to go mask that feeling of like depression of not being like
100%.
accomplished, you know?
Yeah, like I found one day, this was in December, I think. So when I was first starting to figure out how to make a website for Lifeline and all of our sub brands, I felt really daunted and I didn't really want to work on it. So I'd spend a few minutes here, a few minutes there, like, and I convinced myself I was doing the work. But then one day I just had a lot of stuff to do. So I was like, I'm just gonna write this list out. Even though I've done lists before, like in years. Something about this one was different because I heard it was from Grant too. He said that he loves to be productive and when he can't be, he just feels depressed. So I'm like, well, I feel depressed, so maybe I'll follow that advice. And I did, and ever since then, I just like the most addicting thing right now is like writing lists out and just working on them.
There's like a tactile experience that happens when you cross something off a list, and it's very like pleasing. Like, even if it's a simple task, like brush your teeth, make a bed, like the simple things in life, like you can have so many small wins, and those small wins compound and turn into a bigger win for the day. Like, that's how you win days, is you have small wins throughout the day that build on top of each other, and then you get to the end of the day and you're like, you know what, today was a good day. Like, there's very few days now that I have where it's like, today was kind of a crappy day. I might have a long day, and not to say that you're gonna have a easy, every day is gonna be easy, but like, you could still have a long, hard day of work and feel accomplished at the end of it and feel like you've completed something. And there's nothing worse than getting to the end of the day and not feeling like you've accomplished anything or completed anything. I mean, it's a small task that you completed. You won that. You can take that and you can kind of hang your hat on that and say, hey, look what I did. I completed something today. I finished this task and I won this little thing. That's why that's why it's like so good to, like, one of the first things you do in the day, whether it's make your bed or do something difficult, and you win that first thing right away in the day. That's what sets the tone for the day. That's why going to the gym first thing can be, for a lot of people, like the thing that propels them to be a successful person throughout the rest of their day. Like, I can tell you, on the days that I show up and get in a hard workout right away in the morning, those are always the best days, because then I feel like I've accomplished something good. I've done something that really helps me, and I feel like I can take that win and then use that win as the motivation for the rest of the day, with no matter what I'm doing. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, in the last, like, I will say this too, if you're looking for like a win or looking to create those small like wins throughout the day, one of the best ways you can do that, like with the gym, I think one of the most daunting things for a lot of people, I don't know if you're like this, Tom, but I know if I don't have structure to my workouts, a lot of times those workouts don't feel like like I can go to the gym, work out, but if I don't have structure to a workout, like if I don't have a set plan on what I'm doing, I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything. So it goes back to, I think, your list idea. Like, you create that list, you cross something off that list, you feel good. Whereas if you just do a bunch of stuff and you don't really have a direction, you get to the end of the day and you're like, well, what did I really do?
Right.
So I always do better if, like, there's a set task list with everything that I do. So, like, if that's, I want to read for 30 minutes today, I want to make my bed, I want to brush my teeth, I want to, even for me too, like just even like at the end of a day to prepare for the next day so I can have those wins. Like I'm gonna set out my clothes for the next day. I'm gonna prepare everything ahead of time so that I start out my day already winning. Like I'm
Yeah.
ready to win. I'm ready to go. Like that's how you win. Um, so like when I think for one of the reasons I wasn't going to the gym for a while is like I didn't feel like the sense of accomplishment when I was going to the gym because I didn't have a set program.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that I was training for something specific because that's what I thought for a while. I was like, well, I don't have a goal in mind. And you can have a goal that propels you towards that feeling of success. And I think having a goal is important, but that goal doesn't, like, your goal doesn't have to be like, okay, I want to put, like, I want to lift a total between 3 lifts, like 1,000 pounds. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be, I want to win like at something. So like you can if your win is, well, I completed the workout that was set out for me at the beginning of the day, like I have a program. Like that's huge. It makes a huge difference.
100%. Yeah, because structure allows you to find a start and an ending.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a start and a finish line, then you know if you actually completed what you wanted to set out to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It doesn't have to be complicated either. It could be like as long as like I know people talk about like the 100 push-up rule. Like before I start my day, I'm gonna do my 100 push-ups. That could be your thing. That could it can
yeah,
be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be, you have to get a gym membership. You have to do this crazy workout routine. It could be you do 100 push-ups. Now, for like me, that like extra motivation, um, to like to create a routine around like I need a space to go to the gym, do this workout. Like that's part of my routine. That's part of how I feel like I'm accomplishing something. Because it's just like going to the office. Like I like going to a space where it's go time once I'm there. I like having that separation. Like I like having the separation of like, okay, like I show up at the office, it's go time. And when I leave the office, like I want to feel that sense of accomplishment and I can feel good about it and I can leave, like sort of leave it behind. Like I don't necessarily feel the need to then bring that home to like I think too that like just goes into like the having the list of things you're gonna do. Like have that set list of items that you're gonna do for that day. You go into the office, you conquer that list, you come home, you feel that accomplishment. You can set that behind you and you can enjoy the rest of your evening. Um, I think that's huge. It doesn't have to be crazy. Like I remember like in January when I got back into fitness, all I did was I found like some really basic lifting program that was like 5 different lifts, you do 5 sets of 5 and you increase the weight each week. And so I would just go in, do my 5 sets of 5 and leave. And as long as I did my 5 sets of 5 on the exercises it told me to do for that day, I felt great. And that like got me into the gym the next day. And then that builds. Like now I'm doing, if we want to talk about training programs a little bit, now I'm doing a power building program. And it's really kind of like a little bit more advanced, but like that 5x5 program gave me like the base to jump into this program. And I know I probably wouldn't be as successful in this program if I hadn't started with like the base and something. Like I know I'd probably be like skipping out on certain things and stuff like that. Um, but it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference.
oh yeah, so much. Like I'd like to actually to figure this out someday, but well maybe we kind of know the answer. You could you can share your thoughts on this, Aiden. But like, why is it that men want to be huge? It's like the the main. It's like one of the main goals guys who go to the gym is to get bigger, and I think it's because men are innately builders because men are what enable civilization to work. Because if you want to secure domestic life, you need to have systems in place, things that are predictable, that you can use in order to stabilize and to structure your life. It's kind of like, you had to suffer through this, Aiden, but we both had lots of water issues this winter. Every time you have a water issue, you're like, something so simple but so important that just messed up. A day, 2 days, a week. You have to replan, reschedule, it throws everything off. You can't get onto the things you want to do. So when you have systems in place and you can make systems, that's very satisfying because that is essentially technology. Technology is a system that you can put in place that then you can build upon and advance into the next level of life. Like, just for instance, like the car, well, we could go back to the light bulb. The light bulb essentially allowed people to read. That's what enabled people to start reading in their home because they all kind of closed their day down once it got dark. You could have candles, but candles are so expensive that you couldn't really use them for long periods of time, or if you did, there wasn't that much light. So when the light bulb was invented, it enabled people to have like 3 more hours of their day, and that would be about 21 hours a week. So you start compounding that in all the different areas, and then you're able to have more life. You're able to read, understand, learn about things you didn't know before. And so I think with lifting, and why it's so important for us guys, is that it's a personal representation on ourselves, whether or not we've been building ourselves. It's like, do we have, like, quote unquote, the technology to do more for the next day? It's Matt Fraser's quote, I'm going to do today what other people won't so I can do tomorrow what other people can't. And so if we get huge, we essentially now are a representation to others that we have the discipline and the dedication to do something that's inherent with our nature as men, and therefore we want to be more trustworthy to other people. It's like if this is a testament of my trustworthiness to you. I don't know. What do you think about that, Aiden?
Yeah, I think physical appearance, especially when it comes to being fit, is one of those very interesting things. I think there's two things there. I think one is the physical aspect of it, right? And that is that you were able to physically do things when you are a fit person, when you are bigger, stronger, faster, whatever it might be. You're a more able person than somebody that's physically weaker, right? Or slower, or whatever. So there's the physicality aspect. I'm able to do more than the other guy. But I think there's also the mental thing that you're talking about here, the more psychological thing. This thing that I think we oftentimes associate with status too.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that somebody that is big, fast, strong is not only more physically capable, but they have reached the level they are at based on one thing and one thing only. And that is their physical, or not their physical, their mental toughness, their ability to stick to something, to put in work, and then reap the rewards of that. So it's this almost psychological status that you gain. You not only gain physical prowess, but a psychological status from being bigger, because there's no way to cheat that. You can't just and people try to do this through implants and all these crazy surgeries and stuff like that. You can't cheat the gym. You can't cheat the weight. The only way to get better is by putting in more work. So you're not only displaying I'm physically more capable, I'm mentally more capable than you are. I'm not only a physically capable person, but I'm very dedicated. So I think that's the other thing too that plays a huge role in that is, and that's why we try to strive for this, because when we look at people that have great physiques, you're not only looking at their physical capabilities, but also their dedication to that thing, the time that they spent, the effort that they've spent. And that tells a lot about a person. When you look at somebody's physique, you can tell what type of person they are based on that physique, because you are the equivalent of the work that you put in. There's nothing else in life that is that equal of a playing field, I think. And that's the very interesting thing about physical fitness. There are people that are physically or genetically more gifted than others, but you still have to put in the work, right? Like, you can't cheat it. It's not a system that can be cheated or conned. So I think that's something that's really cool. You could be the poorest person on earth, and if you put in that work and dedication, you put in that time and effort, that's something you can accomplish and take away, and that's yours. That's part of who you are, because you spent the time and the effort to invest in that thing. And so I think that's really, it's kind of neat. So I think that's why men strive for that. It's because it's the physical um, building of a physique, that physicality is a representation of who you are as a man.
Yeah. Men are supposed to be reliable. That's our duty. We're supposed to be the solid mountain, like the rock that the family is built on, the thing that the men's wives will count for, and the women know will be there. And that's why it's so important to have strong fathers, because without them, then the family crumbles, because there's no like pillar or structure holding up the rest of the family. And so I think it's really, really good to be dedicated to the gym, because especially nowadays when most of us are in a domestic space, even though there's a lot of problems and there's a lot of scary things, the gym allows us to kind of be living out our warrior spirits. It's like you go in to slay the weights, essentially. Like, are they going to own you, or are you going to own them, essentially?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the cool thing about it is it's one thing you can always control.
Yeah.
Your ability to be physically capable is always controllable. I think Socrates said it. I think he said that it is the quote is, "It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and the strength of which his body is capable." I think Socrates said that. I'm pretty sure it was Socrates. I know it was definitely a Greek philosopher, but I'm pretty sure Socrates said that. But it's really interesting because, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable. I think it's really important. I think he recognized the importance of what being a physically capable human being like a physically capable man means. Like, that is part of your manhood. It's part of your value as a man to be a physically capable man. I think Jordan Peterson says something along the lines of all men should be like dangerous, or have the capability of being dangerous, because without the capability, like, I think he said something. Maybe it wasn't him, but weak men are dangerous men.
Very, yes.
Mm-hmm. Was it Peterson, or was he quoting somebody else?
Well, he says it a lot. Well, it's getting more popular now. Like John Level talks about it, Jocko Willink talks about it. That's essentially true, though. And I think this is really interesting. But men, I think, are supposed to be the archetypes of what can be made in a person. And then we're supposed to be good enough that we can then attract and provide for the next step above that, which is the woman. Because there are like goodness and beauty put together, men are like what's true. Like I think if you look at, there's the three transcendentals: truth, beauty, and goodness. And I've been thinking about this, and now this is all just speculation in my thoughts, but I think what it is um men are supposed to be what's good because they face danger and they overcome it, therefore they're a good person. Women are supposed to be beautiful. They're the thing that the men are going through the pain to get to. And then when they're joined together, that's when the babies are made, and that's what are good. And it's a reflection of the Trinity, because the Trinity is like God sees himself, that sight of himself is the Son, and he loves that sight because it's beautiful, and that's the Holy Spirit, which brings forth all goodness. So it's really interesting to like study more like the in-depth part of like our human nature. It's really fun actually too, because then it opens your mind of what's possible. So these are like the grounding principles I think that we're trying to search for, and then we extrapolate on top of that all the different strategies to accomplish those meaningful things. So that's when like diet, nutrition, training, support, accountability, brotherhoods, gyms, all these different things are like layers on top of that principle. And our hopes to finally reach that goal of what in our minds or what God wants us to be. Because I have a good friend who loves to train. He told me that he said we're Christians, so he said that means we're supposed to be godlike.
Yeah.
So he says that should be in all areas, like our soul, our mind, our body. And so that's kind of cool, think about it, just like we are temples of the Holy Spirit, so we should look like a temple.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we should strive to, I think that's why so many men strive for that physical perfection. Because God himself is perfect. We as man cannot be perfect without God. So it's that constant, it's the constant struggle, or that constant striving to be perfect as God is perfect. So it is really interesting how big of a role or a foundation the physical representation of man plays, or the physical attributes of man plays in that. And I think that's what a lot of people are like. I think either you focus too heavily on that and forget about the spiritual side of it, or some people are so focused on the spiritual side that they forget about the importance of having a strong, not only mind but body.
Yeah.
But more so now, I think, like for the general population, if you don't have a strong body, there's no ability to have the strong mind, because you're so consumed by the weakness of or the lack of your abilities, because your body is a limiting factor in that you can't have a strong mind because you don't have a strong body.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I think we had a lot of good ideas tonight, Aiden. I mean,
I know for our completely ad-libbed podcast, we did a pretty good job.
Yeah,
it was the first of getting back to our fireside chats. We'll have a real fireside chat. Hopefully sometime. It'd be cool to have actual like a fireside chat and like sit around like a campfire and talk about these things. Because I remember in high school and even college too, like getting around talking, like literally like sitting around a campfire and talking about these things with your buddies is always like the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do that eventually. I think it'd be a fun time. But yeah, this was good. This was good. But this show will come out on, if you're listening to this, you will be listening to this on probably May 5th. I would like to say May 5th, right around there. So you probably heard last week our podcast with Myra. That was a great podcast. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Next week or the week after you're listening to this, I think we'll have a prepper podcast or the Lincoln podcast. I'm not sure which one will be out. Either way, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
You guys will enjoy that too. So look out for that. That'll be a really good, whichever podcast we decide to put out first, it'll be a good podcast. Kind of a little shout out. We're about a month away when this podcast is coming out. You will start to see, if you follow our social media channels, you'll start to see information we'll be sharing about Memorial Day. Lifeline USA will be doing a 22, it'll be a, speaking of physical challenges, a physical challenge to challenge yourself and others, but also done in a way to raise awareness for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for their forgotten country. So we'll be, you'll start to see some stuff come out for the 22 Veterans Challenge. So that will be participating in me and Tom will be participating in a physical challenge. So we're challenging you to do something, challenge yourself physically on Memorial Day in a way of remembering our troops and raising awareness for the veterans that struggle with mental health. So on Memorial Day, we'll be inviting you to do 22 push-ups, and we'll invite you to post a video or a picture online on social media of you doing the 22 push-ups in remembrance of the 22 veterans that commit suicide every day. And we'll be trying to raise awareness for that. So we'll come out with some t-shirts, and all the proceeds from those t-shirt sales will go towards Mission 22, which is a charity that works to help veterans and their families after they return from service. So we'll post more things about more ways to help. I'll be doing a 22-mile walk, and if you're interested in sponsoring one of my miles, I have 22 miles that you can sponsor. You can pick a mile, and I'll shout out your name on social media. I think I'll do a live, like an Instagram live or something while I'm doing it. I'm doing walking 22 miles, and at the end of each mile, I will be doing 22 push-ups. So I'll be doing something around like 500 push-ups that day and 22 miles. So that'll be fun. It'll be a good challenge, a good way to push myself physically. But yeah, more to come on that. I just wanted to give a quick shout out because we're gonna try to raise as much awareness on this as we can, and really try to raise as much money for this as we can, so we can donate that to the veterans. So look out for more information. More will be coming. But yeah, thanks for everybody that tuned into the show, this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed our conversation. If you did, you can drop us a like, leave us a comment or review. I always love seeing those, and maybe we'll do another in the comment section video with us reacting to your comments. Always fun. And if you are just finding us and you liked what you heard and you want to find more, go give us a follow at the Green Dragon Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, Truth Social, and the Green Dragon Pod on Rumble and Twitter. And you can listen to our show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. So we're pretty much everywhere now. But until next time, be safe, stay vigilant, and most importantly, be a good American. God bless. Have a great week.